The boy stood alone at the defense table. No lawyer. No parent beside him. Just a wrinkled hoodie and hands shaking so badly he hid them under the desk. The judge leaned forward, smirked, and said loudly enough for the room to hear, "This child has no defense." People laughed. But 5 minutes later, the entire courtroom would freeze, because one question nobody bothered to ask was about to destroy everything they thought they knew. Evan Mercer was 11 years old. He lived in a rundown apartment complex on the south side of Dayton, Ohio, where the elevators rarely worked and the heat shut off without warning. His mom worked nights at a distribution warehouse. His dad had disappeared years earlier. That morning, Evan walked into Montgomery County Juvenile Court alone. He'd never been inside a courtroom before. The ceiling felt too high. The walls too quiet. Every adult looked angry, or bored. Evan was accused of breaking into a private garage and stealing a luxury watch worth more than most people made in a year. The owner was seated behind the prosecutor. Grant Holloway. Real estate billionaire. Local donor. The kind of man whose name was on hospital wings and scholarship plaques. Grant didn't look at Evan. He looked through him. The courtroom smelled like old wood and floor polish. Evan's sneakers squeaked when he shifted his weight. A few people in the gallery turned to stare. He pulled his sleeves over his hands. The prosecutor stood near the front, shuffling papers with the kind of confidence that came from knowing the outcome before the trial even started. Evan's throat tightened. He wanted to explain. Wanted to tell someone what really happened. But every time he opened his mouth, the words caught like glass in his chest. Because if he spoke, his mom would lose everything. The judge flipped through a file without looking up. His nameplate read *** Honorable Raymond Kessler ***. The word honorable felt like a joke. Behind the prosecutor, Grant Holloway leaned back in his seat, arms crossed. He wore a suit that probably cost more than Evan's mom made in 6 months. His expression was calm. Detached. Like he was watching a minor inconvenience get handled. Evan tried to make himself smaller. The judge finally looked up. His eyes swept over Evan like he was something stuck to the bottom of a shoe. "Mr. Mercer," the judge said flatly, "do you understand the charges against you?" Evan nodded. "Out loud, please." "Yes, sir." "And you appear here today without legal representation?" Evan swallowed. "Yes, sir." The judge sighed. "This court does not look favorably upon defendants who refuse counsel." "I didn't refuse. Then where is your attorney?" Evan's voice cracked. "We couldn't afford one." A few murmurs rippled through the room. The judge leaned forward, smirked, and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "This child has no defense." Laughter. Not loud. Not cruel. Just casual. Like it was obvious. Like Evan was already guilty, already forgotten. Grant Holloway smiled faintly. Evan stared at the table. His hands were still shaking. Asterisk, if the evidence was so clear, why did Evan look terrified instead of guilty? Asterisk. The prosecutor stood confidently. Her name was Angela Reeves. Mid-40s. Sharp suit. Sharper tone. She didn't waste time. "Your Honor," she began, "the evidence in this case is undeniable." She clicked a remote. A grainy security image appeared on the screen behind her. A figure in a hoodie. Face obscured. Standing near a garage door. "This footage," Angela continued, "was taken at 11:47 p.m. on the night of the theft. The defendant was identified by his clothing and the backpack he was carrying." She gestured toward Evan. That same backpack was searched the following morning. Inside, officers found this. She held up a plastic evidence bag. Inside was a watch. Gold band. Intricate face. The kind of thing you saw in magazine ads, not pawn shops. "A Patek Philippe Nautilus," Angela said. "Valued at $120,000. The room stirred. Evan felt the weight of every stare. "The defendant has no alibi," Angela continued. "No explanation for how this item came into his possession. And despite multiple opportunities to cooperate, he has refused to speak." That wasn't true. Evan had tried to explain. Tried to tell the officers what really happened. But every time he started, they interrupted. Told him to save it for court. Told him it would only make things worse. So he stopped talking. The judge looked down at Evan. Mr. Mercer, do you have anything to say? Evan's chest tightened. He wanted to scream. He wanted to tell them about the alley. About the broken watch. About the man who grabbed his arm and whispered threats in the dark. But if he did, his mom would lose her job. Grant Holloway made sure Evan understood that. I didn't steal it, Evan whispered. The judge raised a hand. You'll speak when asked a direct question. Evan's jaw clenched. Angela Reeves stepped closer to the bench. Your Honor, this is a clear case. The evidence speaks for itself. The defendant is a minor, yes, but the crime is serious. The victim is a respected member of this community. And the law must send a message. She turned slightly, just enough for the gallery to see her face. If we allow behavior like this to go unpunished, what are we saying to the next child who thinks theft is a shortcut? Grant Holloway nodded slowly. The judge leaned back in his chair. I tend to agree, Ms. Reeves. Evan's stomach dropped. The judge looked at him again. This time with something that wasn't quite pity. More like annoyance. This boy has no defense, the judge said. The room murmured in agreement. No one asked why Evan had been near that garage. No one asked why a child would risk prison for a watch he couldn't sell. No one asked why his hands were shaking or why he kept glancing at the back of the room like he was waiting for someone. They had already decided. Evan bit the inside of his cheek until he tasted copper. Angela returned to her seat, satisfied. Grant Holloway leaned back, arms still crossed, the faintest trace of a smile on his lips. Evan stared at the floor. He counted the cracks in the tile. 12. He tried to focus on that instead of the heat rising in his throat. Asterisk, if you've ever felt unheard, you'll want to see where this goes. Stay with us at asterisk. Asterisk, the evidence looked perfect. Too perfect at asterisk. Detective Raylon Brooks sat in the back row. He wasn't assigned to the case anymore. His job was done, or so he'd been told. But something felt wrong. Raylon had been a detective for 16 years. He'd worked robbery, fraud, homicide. He knew what guilt looked like. He knew what fear looked like. And the kid at that table? That wasn't guilt. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees, watching Evan's every movement. The footage was grainy. Too grainy. The timestamp didn't align with the dispatcher logs he'd seen earlier. And the watch had no fingerprints. Not smudged. None. Like someone had wiped it clean before planting it. Raylon glanced at Grant Holloway. The billionaire sat perfectly still. Calm. Composed. But his jaw was tight. That was the tell. Raylon had seen it before. The kind of tension that came from controlling a story, not living through it. He pulled out his phone and made a note. Asterisk asterisk check garage security logs again. That asterisk 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 run vehicle records. Asterisk 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 find out who else had accessed. Asterisk asterisk Evan shifted in his seat. He never looked at the jury. Never looked at Grant Holloway. He stared at the floor like he was counting seconds. Raylon recognized that look. Not guilt. Fear. The kind of fear that came from knowing the truth, and knowing it didn't matter. Grant Holloway finally stood. The room quieted instantly. He didn't need to raise his voice. Power had a way of commanding silence. Your Honor, Grant said smoothly, I want to begin by saying I respect this court. I respect the law. I've spent my career supporting this community. He paused. But I also believe consequences matter. He turned slightly, just enough for his words to reach the gallery. If we excuse behavior like this, what message are we sending? That theft is acceptable if you're young? That wealth makes you a target? That someone like me should simply accept being victimized? Grant's gaze drifted toward Evan. Not with anger. With dismissal. Some people, Grant said quietly, don't belong in places they can't afford. The words landed like a slap. Evan's shoulders stiffened. His hands curled into fists under the table. Grant continued. I don't say this to be cruel. I say it because reality matters. This boy made a choice. He knew what he was doing. And now he must face the consequences of that choice. He turned back to the judge. I trust this court will deliver justice. Grant sat down. The prosecutor nodded in approval. The judge scribbled something on his notepad. Evan's mind screamed one sentence over and over. Asterisk, if I talk, she'll lose everything. That asterisk, his mom didn't know he was here. She thought he was at school. If she found out, if she learned what Grant had threatened, she'd try to fight it. And she'd lose. Grant owned the warehouse. He owned half the buildings in their neighborhood. He had lawyers, money, power. And Evan had nothing. So he stayed silent. Even when it hurt. Even when the entire room stared at him like he was garbage. Raylon Brooks watched from the back. He saw the way Evan flinched when Grant spoke. The way his breathing quickened. The way he bit his lip to keep from crying. That wasn't guilt. That was survival. Raylon stood quietly and slipped out of the courtroom. He had work to do. Asterisk, cases like this happen every day. Subscribe so you never miss when justice finally fights back. That asterisk, who was Evan protecting and why was he willing to be punished for it? Asterisk. That night, Raylon Brooks broke protocol. He returned to the garage. The security gate was still up. The area cordoned off with yellow tape that flapped lazily in the wind. Raylon ducked under it. He wasn't supposed to be here. The case was closed. Evidence logged. Arrest made. But closed cases didn't itch like this. He pulled out his flashlight and scanned the area. The garage belonged to a private storage facility, one of those luxury spots where people kept vintage cars, motorcycles, wine collections. The kind of place that cost more per month than Evan's mom made in 3. Raylon approached the security panel near the entrance. The system was older than it looked. Decent cameras, but the software was outdated. He pulled up the logs on his phone using the access code he'd memorized from the initial investigation. The footage showed Evan's figure near the door at 11:47 p.m. But Raylon scrolled back. 11:41 p.m., camera goes offline. 11:47 p.m., camera back online. Evan appears. 6 minutes. 6 minutes was enough time for someone else to enter, stage the scene, and leave. Raylon's jaw tightened. He pulled the parking records next. Most of the vehicles that night were registered to members. Predictable names. Predictable plates. But one stood out. Asterisk 11:34 p.m., vehicle entry, black Escalade. Plate, HH2401. Registered to Holloway Holdings LLC, asterisk Raylon stared at the screen. Grant Holloway's company vehicle. Inside the garage. 7 minutes before Evan appeared on camera. He took a screenshot. Then another. Then he checked the exit logs. Asterisk 11:52 p.m., vehicle exit, same Escalade. That asterisk 5 minutes after Evan was caught on camera. Raylon stood in the cold garage, the pieces falling into place. This wasn't theft. This was a setup. Raylon didn't sleep that night. He sat at his kitchen table, laptop open, diving deeper. He pulled Grant Holloway's financial records. Public filings. Insurance claims. And there it was. Asterisk filed, October 12th. Claim, stolen property. Item, Paytech Philippe Nautilus. Value, $120,000, asterisk Raylon checked the date again. October 12th. Evan was arrested on October 19th. The watch was reported stolen a week before Evan ever touched it. Raylon leaned back in his chair. Grant Holloway had filed an insurance claim for a stolen watch. Then, a week later, that same watch showed up in a kid's backpack. Which meant one of two things: either Grant lied on the insurance claim, or he staged the theft to collect the payout, and needed someone to take the fall. Raylon grabbed his phone. He called his old partner, a forensic accountant who owed him a favor. Run a full audit on Holloway Holdings, Raylon said. Focus on insurance claims over the past 2 years. I want to know if this is a pattern. Raylon, you're off this case. I know. You could lose your badge. I know. Silence. Then, I'll have it by morning. Raylon hung up. He stared at the photo of Evan from the courtroom. The kid hadn't stolen anything. He'd been used. And the system, the judge, the prosecutor, the entire courtroom, had been too blind, too lazy, or too corrupt to see it. Raylon grabbed his coat. He had one more stop to make. Asterisk, the truth was hiding in plain sight. Don't let another story like this slip by. Subscribe now to Asterisk. Asterisk, if Evan didn't steal the watch, why did he have it? Asterisk. Raylon pulled up to the apartment complex just after midnight. The building looked worse than he'd imagined. Cracked siding. Rusted railings. A flickering light in the stairwell that buzzed like a trapped insect. He climbed to the third floor. Apartment 3F. He knocked. Footsteps. Slow. Cautious. The door opened a crack. A chain lock held it in place. A woman peered out. Mid-30s. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. Mrs. Mercer? Raylon asked. Who's asking? He held up his badge. Detective Raylon Brooks. I need to talk to you about your son. Her face drained of color. Did something happen? No, he's not hurt. But I need to ask him some questions. Can I come in? She hesitated. Then nodded. The apartment was small. Clean, but worn. A couch with duct tape over a tear in the cushion. A kitchenette with mismatched dishes stacked by the sink. The kind of place where people worked hard just to keep the lights on. Evan sat on the couch, knees pulled to his chest. When he saw Raylon, he froze. It's okay, Raylon said gently. I'm not here to arrest you. Evan didn't move. His mother stood beside him, hand on his shoulder. What's this about? Raylon sat in the chair across from them. Evan, he said quietly, I've been looking at the evidence in your case. And something doesn't add up. Evan stared at the floor. I know you didn't steal that watch. Evan's mother gasped. What? The security footage was tampered with. The timeline doesn't match. And the watch was reported stolen a week before you were arrested. Raylon leaned forward. But I need you to tell me the truth. How did you get it? Evan said nothing. His mother squeezed his shoulder. Evan, baby, if you didn't do this, you need to tell him. Evan's voice came out barely above a whisper. I found it. Raylon waited. In the alley, Evan continued. Behind the storage place. It was already broken. The band was bent. The glass was cracked. His hands trembled. I thought maybe I could fix it. Sell it. Help Mom with rent. His mother's eyes filled with tears. But then, Evan's voice cracked. I saw them. Saw who? Raylon asked. Mr. Holloway's driver. And another man. They were fighting. The driver, he hit the other guy. Hard. The man fell. He wasn't moving. Evan's breathing quickened. The driver saw me. He came over. Grabbed my arm. Told me if I said anything, my mom would lose her job. He said Mr. Holloway owned the warehouse. That he could make us disappear. Raylon's jaw tightened. He took the watch out of my hand. Looked at it. Then he put it in my backpack and told me to go home. Said if I was smart, I'd forget everything I saw. Evan finally looked up. His eyes were red. I tried to throw it away. But the next morning, the police were at my school. They searched my locker. Found the watch. And then, he trailed off. His mother pulled him close, tears streaming down her face. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Because they said they'd fire you, Evan said. And we can't lose your job, Mom. We can't. Raylon stood slowly. He looked at this kid, this 11-year-old boy who'd been willing to go to prison to protect his mother. Evan, Raylon said, his voice steady, you're not going to prison. And your mom's not losing her job. Evan shook his head. You don't understand. Mr. Holloway, he's too powerful. No one's going to believe me. Raylon crouched down to Evan's level. I believe you. Evan stared at him. And I'm going to make sure everyone else does too. Asterisk, this is why we dig deeper. If you believe the powerless deserve a voice, hit subscribe before we reveal what happens next at Asterisk. Asterisk, the child wasn't stealing. He was surviving. Asterisk. The courtroom filled again. Same wooden benches. Same high ceiling. Same fluorescent lights that hummed too loudly. But the energy was different. Word had spread. Local reporters lined the back row. A few people from the neighborhood showed up, curious about why the case had been reopened. Evan sat at the same defense table. This time, Raylon sat beside him. Grant Holloway entered with his lawyer. 3 of them, actually. Expensive suits. Leather briefcases. The kind of legal team that billed by the minute. Grant didn't look worried. He looked annoyed. The prosecutor, Angela Reeves, sat at her table, flipping through notes with a tight expression. She hadn't been told what the new evidence was, only that it was significant. Judge Kessler entered. Everyone rose. He sat, adjusted his glasses, and looked directly at Raylon. Detective Brooks, the judge said slowly. I understand you've requested this hearing. I hope you have good reason. Raylon stood. I do, Your Honor. He walked to the front, a folder in his hand. Your Honor, I'm submitting new evidence that fundamentally changes the nature of this case. Grant Holloway's lawyer stood immediately. Objection. This is highly irregular. The case has already been adjudicated. This is a juvenile hearing, the judge interrupted. I'll allow it. For now. The lawyer sat, jaw clenched. Raylon opened the folder. On the night of October 19th, Evan Mercer was arrested for theft. The evidence against him appeared solid. Security footage. The stolen item found in his possession. No alibi. He paused. But no one asked how a broken watch, already reported stolen a week earlier, ended up in the hands of an 11-year-old boy. The room stirred. Grant Holloway shifted in his seat. Raylon continued. I reviewed the security logs from the storage facility. The camera that allegedly captured Evan went offline for 6 minutes. During that time, a vehicle registered to Holloway Holdings entered and exited the premises. He placed a document on the judge's bench. This is the parking record. That vehicle belonged to Grant Holloway's company. It arrived 7 minutes before Evan appeared on camera. Grant's lawyer stood again. Your Honor, this is speculation. I'm not finished, Raylon said firmly. He pulled out another document. This is an insurance claim filed by Grant Holloway on October 12, 1 week before Evan's arrest. He reported the same Patek Philippe watch as stolen and claimed $120,000 in damages. Silence. Dead silence. The judge removed his glasses. You're saying Mr. Holloway reported the watch stolen before the defendant was even accused? Yes, Your Honor. Grant Holloway's face flushed red. He leaned toward his lawyer, whispering urgently. Raylon wasn't done. I also have a witness statement from Evan Mercer. On the night in question, he observed an altercation between Mr. Holloway's driver and another individual. During that altercation, the driver assaulted the individual, and Evan witnessed it. Raylon's voice hardened. The driver threatened Evan. Told him if he spoke, his mother would lose her job. Then he planted the watch in Evan's backpack to silence him. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scribbled furiously. The gallery murmured. Angela Reeves stared at her notes, face pale. Judge Kessler raised his hand for silence. Grant Holloway stood. This is absurd. Sit down, Mr. Holloway, the judge said sharply. Grant didn't sit. This is a witch hunt. That boy is lying. He's a thief trying to, Mr. Holloway, the judge said, his voice cold. Sit down. Grant finally sat, trembling with rage. Raylon placed one more document on the bench. This is phone records from the night of the incident. Multiple calls between Grant Holloway and his driver immediately following the altercation. And this, he held up a printed image, is traffic camera footage showing the driver's vehicle fleeing the area at 11:53 p.m. Judge Kessler studied the documents in silence. The room waited. Finally, the judge looked up. His gaze moved from Raylon to Grant Holloway. Then to Evan. Mr. Holloway, the judge said slowly, it appears you attempted to fabricate a crime to conceal an assault and used a child to do it. Grant's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client denies these allegations. Your client will remain seated, the judge snapped. And if I find that any of this evidence is accurate, he will face criminal charges. He turned to Angela Reeves. Ms. Reeves, I assume the state will be withdrawing its case against Evan Mercer. Angela stood slowly. She looked at Evan. Then at Grant. Yes, Your Honor. The state withdraws all charges. The judge nodded. Then he turned to Evan. His tone changed. Softer. Almost gentle. Son, he said quietly, I owe you an apology. Evan stared at him, eyes wide. This court failed you. I failed you. And for that, I am deeply sorry. The room was silent. Evan didn't speak. He didn't need to. Justice doesn't always arrive on time, but when it does, you'll want to witness it. Subscribe so you're here when the system finally gets it right at the same courtroom. The same power. But now, nowhere to hide. The judge removed his glasses and set them on the bench. He looked at Grant Holloway for a long moment. Mr. Holloway, he said, his voice measured, you are a respected member of this community. Your name is on buildings. Scholarships. Hospital wings. Grant straightened slightly, as if the judge's words were an acknowledgement of his status. But the judge wasn't finished. Which makes what you've done even more reprehensible. Grant's face went pale. You used your wealth and influence to frame an innocent child. You threatened his family. You manipulated evidence. And you stood in this courtroom and demanded justice, while committing an injustice yourself. The judge's voice grew harder. You are a disgrace. The room erupted in whispers. Grant shot to his feet. Your Honor, I will not sit here and be, you will sit, the judge said coldly, or I will hold you in contempt. Grant's lawyer grabbed his arm, pulling him back down. The judge turned to the bailiff. Bailiff, please place Mr. Holloway under arrest pending a full investigation into insurance fraud, witness intimidation, and accessory to assault. The bailiff moved forward. Grant's eyes widened. You can't, I can, the judge said. And I am. The bailiff reached Grant's side. He hesitated, as if unsure how to handle someone so powerful. But the judge's stare left no room for doubt. Grant Holloway was handcuffed in the same courtroom where he had sat smugly just days before. The same people who had nodded along with his words now avoided his gaze. The same prosecutor who had confidently declared Evan guilty now stared at her hands. The same system that had mocked Evan now watched in stunned silence as the real criminal was led away. Grant didn't look at Evan as he passed. But Evan looked at him. Not with anger. Not with triumph. Just with the quiet strength of someone who had survived. The judge turned back to Evan. Mr. Mercer, he said gently, you are free to go. All charges are dismissed. Your record will be expunged. Evan nodded slowly. His mother, sitting in the gallery, burst into tears. Raylon placed a hand on Evan's shoulder. You did good, kid. Evan's voice was barely audible. I just told the truth. That's all you ever needed to do. The courtroom began to clear. Reporters rushed out to file their stories. The gallery murmured as people filed into the hallway. But Evan stayed seated for a moment. He looked around the room. The same walls. The same bench. The same ceiling. But everything felt different. His mother came down from the gallery and pulled him into a hug. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Raylon watched them, a small smile crossing his face. Justice had arrived. Late. Imperfect. But it had arrived. When power finally answers to truth, it changes everything. Subscribe, because the next case might not have someone like Raylon. Charges against Evan were dismissed. Grant Holloway was arrested and charged with insurance fraud, witness intimidation, and conspiracy to commit assault. His driver was arrested separately and confessed in exchange for a reduced sentence. The warehouse where Evan's mother worked launched an internal investigation into threats made against employees. Several managers were fired. New protections were put in place. Evan's mother kept her job. For the first time in years, she didn't have to choose between paying rent and buying groceries. 3 months later, Raylon received a letter. It was handwritten. The letters were uneven, like someone had taken their time with each word. Dear Detective Brooks, I joined the debate club at school. My teacher says I'm good at it. I'm not the loudest. But I speak when it matters. Thank you for listening when no one else did. Evan Raylon folded the letter carefully and tucked it into his desk drawer. He thought about Evan often. About how close the system had come to destroying an innocent kid. About how many others might not have someone willing to dig deeper. About how fragile justice really was. The system failed Evan. Not because it lacked rules. But because it lacked listening. The evidence was there. The truth was there. But no one cared to look. They saw a poor kid with no lawyer and assumed guilt. They saw a billionaire with a good reputation and assumed honesty. They saw what was easy to see, and stopped there. Justice didn't arrive on time. It arrived because one person chose to question certainty. One person chose to believe a child's fear over an adult's confidence. One person decided that the truth mattered more than convenience. And that changed everything. If this story shook you, stay with us. Because the next injustice might happen closer than you think. In a courtroom. A classroom. A workplace. Anywhere power meets vulnerability. And knowing the signs, knowing when to ask the questions no one else will ask, is how we protect the powerless. Assumption of guilt is the most dangerous weapon power has. Subscribe, before silence becomes the verdict. If you're still not subscribing, drop a comment. What's holding you back? Was justice served, or did it come too late?